We are speaking now with the one and only Dr. Mehmood Khan, Chief Executive Officer of the Hevolution Foundation. Congratulations on a very successful Global Health Span Summit. What a marvelous job you've done.
Well, thank you for coming, attending, and I say this to everybody. This happened because of the 2,100, almost 2,100 people that traveled from across the world, North America, Europe, UK, Asia, Middle East, of course, to be here. And it happened because I got a great team who made it happen and put it together. So really, took a village.
We can vouch for that. It's been extraordinarily well run. They've taken great care of us. Thank you for having us out. When we spoke before, you sort of teased some announcements and awards. Can you talk a little bit not only about this summit, how you think it went, but also these awards going forward and what you hope to achieve?
So look, everything we do, and I think in anything in one's life, if you want to make impact in a lasting way, you have to have the relationships. You have to have the partnerships, and you have to have the credibility to leverage that credibility to make it into partnerships, right? So, I'm flattered that that's what they're saying, but really it's because of those relationships and working together with a common mission, a common purpose. That's what brings people together. Even more so than financial incentives. People want to make a change, and that's why they're here. Now, the awards are another example of that, right? Everything that we've been building, and I've had the privilege of leading as CEO, has been about who can I partner with, because I keep reminding everybody that collaboration gives you leverage, that leverage allows you to get scale, and that scale allows you to have impact. So it all starts with that collaboration. And so these partnerships and these awards that we announced, if you actually look at them, they're not just awards, they're initiatives and partnerships that are being fueled by us as a catalyst. So let's take a look at some of the things. And it was great to give you a teaser, and I hope it was worth it, because there has never been a meeting in this space that has announced partnerships of the scale and diversity that we did. A huge part, of course, was bringing in, through those partnerships and awards, new talent. And I want to come back to that, because this is all going to get fueled because of new talent. Ideas, not only new in age, but new perspectives. So the big one of this, as an initial launch, was to announce the largest prize in any field in history. $101 million X Prize, Health Span X Prize, where we have the privilege of being the largest funder. And so we were able to shape even the name of the prize to the Health Span Prize, consistent with the Global Health Span Summit. We wanted to announce it here. Its purpose is very simple. It is to bring together hopefully hundreds, if not thousands, of competing teams from every corner of the world, putting forward their ideas and saying, we have the answer. The interesting thing is, within an hour of the announcement, we had more than a dozen applicants already posted saying, and I had one on social media, on one of my connections, saying, game on. I'm quoting, game on, 60 minutes after the announcement.
And there have been no leaks, so they had no.
You didn't know, right? We had, the only people who knew were senior leading scientists that we had gone to under confidentiality to say, will you join one of our committees to help design it? And more than one scientist, halfway through me asking them, will you join our committee to advise us, said no. And I'm going, why not? Because I'm going to compete.
That's brilliant.
Right? Yeah. I'm going to compete. Are you kidding? I am not joining, because we had a requirement. If you join our advisory committee, conflict of interest, you can't compete. So no, not a chance.
I don't want to be on the sidelines.
I don't want to be on the sidelines. I'm competing. And so we had to scratch our head. This is great. The best minds, and we can't, of course. So we figured it out. So that is the basis and one piece of starting this movement. Let's take a look at the other. We reflected back and said, what awards can we do to bring new talent? Well, the prize is a great incentive, and You heard us say yesterday, $100 million prize should, based on experience, bring at least $1 billion of investments from around the world to compete for that prize. I know at least one government that has already given us a commitment that they're going to provide funding to their national teams. That's leverage.
Fascinating.
Right? That's leverage.
Becomes a national.
Absolutely. Prize, because which country wants to be, out of any of the countries that are capable, to be left on the sideline? So now government officials saying, well, why isn't a national team from my country in this? What can I do to help them win? That's exactly. So we've got countries now starting to have this conversation. The first one I know of has already made that commitment, and I've got several others now who were waiting to see why. Now, why did we talk to government officials? Because we want also the regulatory environment to be amenable to be able to bring to market the output of the competition. You can't wait until the winner is identified with a new solution, and now you sort of say, well, this is great, but can't sell it, bring the product to market because we don't have no regulations for it. What did you see today? We had on the same forum a regulator, an investor, a biotechnologist, translational scientist, and clinicians. Same place, same time, debating what that future would look like and what the roadmap is. So that's happening. How do I attract new scientists beyond that? Well, one of the gaps we heard was, while lots of universities train PhDs and they have established investigators, but there is a loss of talent because there's not enough postdoctoral training. How to fund the apprenticeship from after finishing your PhD to starting your career as a scientist. That gap is sort of fallen between the gaps because governments say, well, university work is done, so it's not. You don't have a job yet. You don't have a job yet. You're not established and trained as an independent scientist. It's not the mandate of an education department that's got your PhD done. It's not the mandate of a full-fledged research grant program. There's some postdoctoral, but way insufficient, and it's not industry's job. We said, fine. We just announced a global postdoctoral program to train PhDs and MDs who finished that training, now to give them an opportunity to train as geroscientists, train the next generation. That's one way. Another is we're started already funding new investigators. These are the people who are in this early phase of their career who are less likely to get funded. I mean, the tragedy here is if you look at NIH, when you look at the UK, the average age of a scientist funded by the NIH or the Medical Research Council over the last 20 years has been going up. So they're getting older and older. That's a problem, two ways. One, we've got a gap in the future succession. Who's going to fill those amazing, labs? Second, new ideas. And so it's almost a structural problem. But one way to change that is take a bet on those alternative new ideas. Because think about our review process. Who reviews these new ideas? Established scientists. Well, good luck funding an idea that's counter to the one you've built on your career. There's a structural bias. We recognize it. We just don't know what the solution is. So we said, okay, fine. Let's just create a separate program just for new scientists, early in their career. So that, and the last example is we identified in some areas, like public health, aging has not been funded anywhere near the extent it needs to be, which ultimately you have to change public health. We heard that. So we announced the first endowed chair in aging in a school of public health at Indiana University that we announced today. So we're going to fund a scientist with an endowment so that scientist doesn't have to write a research grant to fund their salary. They can focus on doing research. So it's a whole spectrum of things. And by the way, many more to come. This is just stage one.
Well, and day one's extraordinarily impressive, but when we spoke in our previous episode, you emphasized the word operationalize. And it's fascinating, in all these awards and initiatives, they have to do with science, but they really have to do with entirely everything. Economics, you mentioned new talent, and you mentioned opportunity. Well, this is more than opportunity, it's inducement. And it's an extraordinary take on the whole field. And I think that's something that you should be commended about, and what Hevolution is trying to do. It's not just looking at the science. It's looking at how to make the science possible. Can you talk a little bit about the X Prize? Because it's got a 7-year span with specific goals. And what are those goals?
Well, as we were thinking about our partnership and shaping the X Prize, the first was, of course, to focus on health span, not longevity. Keeping people healthy as long as possible. And the second was, which of the organ systems we know have a major decline in fairly large parts of our population as we age. And there are 3, not the only ones, but there are 3 that were fairly obvious and easy to look at. 1, neurodegeneration and brain neurological function. It's probably going to be the single largest cost burden in most developed countries. The estimates suggest if we don't do anything differently, 50% of people over the age of 80 have dementia. 50%. Well, guess what? There's going to be 1 billion more people over the age of 60 between now and 2050. 80-year-old plus is going to be the largest growing sector of our demographic. We better do something now. And so that was one. The second is we know our musculoskeletal system, our ability to retain muscle, which is important for mobility, independence, all of those things, falls, all the rest of it, is important to go after. The third, the immune system. A lack of our adequate immune function as we age increases the risk of infections. A lot of people recognize that, but few people recognize that it also plays an important risk factor in cancer development. As you know, immunotherapy counters that. Well, the natural immunotherapy is keep your own immune function working. And so those were the 3. Now we then said, demonstrate to us that you can restore function by at least 10 years of reversal. So if you're studying somebody who's 60, show that their immune system or their brain function goes back to at least where they were when they were 50. That 10 years has a massive impact in health span as we get older, let alone the GDP impact. You heard Andrew Scott. 1 year, $40 trillion GDP. Imagine 10 years. Okay? Massive. And that's independent economists calculating that. So that's the rationale for those 3. Why 7 years? Because we want to give an incentive. People competing, you've got to sort of define, hey, you've got so much time to get this done in. And so by saying we're committing to 7 years, tells the world the clock is ticking. If you sort of don't give them an end time, we'll sort of get there. Sure. Now, we wanted to accelerate this. So it was hopefully carefully thought out as to now we've got to define what you measure to demonstrate you've got 10 years of function. By the way, we didn't incentivize a pathway. We didn't incentivize a technique or a specific drug. We said show restoration of function. To us, it doesn't matter to a human being what the mechanism was. What's matter is I can feel my muscles are stronger. I can feel my thinking is better. I can feel my immune system is better because I'm less likely to get sick, or I can get a vaccine like the flu shot and it'll work. As you know, it only works in 40% of the population over 65. 60% of our over 65-year-olds, the flu shot has no effect. That's not acceptable.
Dr. Khan, we only have 1 minute left. It's been an honor to be here. We just spoke with your colleague, Her Royal Highness Princess Haya, and the feeling about Hevolution right now is, I think, a word to describe it is optimism and enthusiasm and energy. How do you feel? How do you feel about today, this accomplishment, and the way forward?
Look, I couldn't be happier with the outcome and the feedback I've heard from dozens of attendees that I've interacted with. The social media conversation in the first day is through the roof. Unprecedented engagement. I don't know the interpretation of the data, but my media team tells me this is unprecedented.
Confirm.
This is your
field. Confirm that, yeah.
This is your field. However, the optimism is there not only because of the announcements, the scientific progress, the engagement, but it's a feeling that we're right at that inflection point. And ultimately, what I want to see out of this is we started with a vision from our board, input from the field. We took all of that in. We converted that vision into a mission, converted that mission into action items. You saw all of that at this. But we want this to be a global movement. And to be a global movement, it becomes something that the large part of the population starts to embrace, regardless of location and culture. You guys, by the way, can help us take what we're doing and make it into a movement. That's what it's going to take. Look at history. Cancer was a taboo until Susan Lasker made it into a movement. And it mobilized governments, created the NIH. Remember, it started the National Cancer Institute, found cures for cancer, and millions of people today who have been cured from cancer would not be alive if it wasn't for a movement. Imagine what could happen. That's why I'm optimistic.
Congratulations.
Thank you.